Hello guys, and welcome back to a special edition of In the Studio. Outside of the studio, we are dealing with the TI4 blues off in our own homes for the most part, except for me. I am Brian K-Poptosis here and staying here at the BTS house. This is episode 15 of In the Studio. As always, In the Studio is brought to you by 100tb.com, an infrastructure provider that does stuff like dedicated servers, cloud hosting, and content delivery services. Make sure you check them out at 100tb.com because they make this show possible. That was a lot better.
That was a lot better. Very smooth, very good, and makes it seem like we kind of know what we're doing.
We kind of do, sometimes.
Yeah. Well, sort of. I'm on vacation. I'm using a Mac right now. I don't really know what I'm doing, dude. Macs are a whole nother beast. I'm glad I got everything to work. LD, how are you enjoying your vacation, good sir?
I'm good. I'm enjoying my stay at my folks' house, and no, this is not Arabia, nor is it fucking Arabia. My mom has eclectic taste for interior decorating / actually uses things like drapes and paintings and stuff. So, yeah.
I'm staying in a house that has a small child. The bed next to me has been transformed into a tent. There was some camping going on last night, so I'm making do with what I've got. Nothing as fancy as your Arabian Night themes, though, LD. Very nice.
Oh, God.
Classy.
I can't even take credit for it, but yeah.
So classy. So, all right, guys, this episode we're talking TI4. We're going to wrap everything up. We're broken into 3 parts today. We're going to be talking about our TI experience. We're going to be bringing in PPD in the second part to talk about TI from the player perspective and some EG stuff. And then in the third part, we're going to have James Harding on. Hopefully he shows up, makes some time for us. We got the affirmative, but James is supposed to be coming on for the third portion. So to get things started, boys, we've got a little bit of house cleaning. I think first up, Brian, talk about your giveaway. This is super exciting.
Okay.
My gosh.
So we're like really close to 50,000 followers on Twitter. We're at like 49.7K, I think. So that's like 250, 300 away. I'm not sure the exact number. But we have some leftover player cards that we got at TI4, 12 of them actually, and we want to give them away once we hit 50K. So
Well, let me ask you, Brian, are we actually giving them away, or are we just announcing that we're going to give them away? I just want to be clear about this.
I don't know, maybe. We gotta hit 50K first. I wanna actually give them away. I wanna do like really easy trivia questions, just so like the first person to respond with the correct answer will get them. I think.
LD's pulling out the rifles, man. He's firing mad shots at the David Parker.
Okay, so I mean, let's go through the list of sins here. So we started off with I guess the Enchantress cosplay, right?
Yeah.
God is just fucking useless, man. I remember when the Enchantress cosplay promise first came up, and I actually didn't even know what the stakes were. I thought it was like if the Chinese team won the wild card last year, and then he's like, no, it was whoever wins the finals. Like, oh man, you're in trouble, because Navi and Alliance look really good. Right. So Chinese team loses. So God loses the match to Toby. And then he agrees to the Enchantress cosplay. So you fast forward, and there's actually like a long sorted post, which like broke down every single broken promise from Gods, but it begins with MLG Columbus, right? I think that was the first time where he was really, like, oh, I'm actually going to do this soon. So MLG kind of like said they would help him out with it, but I don't know exactly what they discussed. It didn't happen. All right, fine. That was kind of last minute. Okay. So then you fast forward to the Asia. This is, mind you, a full month later, and the promise was made for, I think it was like around September is when the agreement happened. So he's already had 3 to 4 months to make this work. And still no cosplay. He said, he even was like teasing, dropping some like Sproink, Sproink coming to a theater near you this December. That didn't happen. So go to 2014.
That was the worst part, honestly.
Let's turn it over to the new year here and let's see what Gods really has. So nothing happens, and then he starts getting lambasted on Reddit, and Reddit has its problems, but I think very fairly he gets raked over the coals, and so he says. He actually gets the person who was helping him to make a Reddit post apologizing that the cosplay's not done. Mind you, this is already 7 to 8 months late.
Yeah.
Already 7 to 8 months late. So you had at least 4 to 6 months to figure out that this person isn't going to get it done and just find someone else. He didn't do it. So she apologizes. He puts her on blast or has her go on Reddit and on blast, whatever you want to call it.
But still gets her to do it.
He starts teasing it's going to happen at the summit. It doesn't happen at the summit. And so then he does an interview with Hotpid at TI4 where he fucking says in the interview, TI4 just seemed like the right time to do it. It had to be at an event of the same magnitude as TI3, so I'm going to do it at TI3 or TI4. It's going to happen. Sprike, blah, blah, blah. Fast forward to the main event. I ask him, like, hey, is it still happening? Because at this point, I don't fucking believe a word the guy says. It's like, yeah, the cosplay's definitely happening at TI4. So it doesn't happen. And then it's like, it got lost in the Australian post. Okay, so that's bad. But then what makes it worse is, well,
that is a point though. Is it was supposed to be on the way, but apparently it got lost.
So they say.
So they say.
I've seen no evidence.
I caught fucking flame for it. Like half the people who came up like, I really enjoy your CasLD. Can I get your signature? Yeah, of course. And then half of them are like, hey, where's the cosplay? I'm like, I don't fucking know where the fucking nice guy. That's the tall, shady Australian man to my right.
I think at this point it's just developed its own, like it's its own life at this point. There's nothing you can really do.
I'm fucking done with the cosplay, dude. He's not allowed to make promises anymore. Like, he's really done.
I mean, that's why he's in Newfoundland. That's why he's not on the show. He's out. We kicked him out. We made him go over to Newfoundland.
We did Southeast Asia Best of the Best, right? And I think it was Asian Cyber Game. I'm trying to remember. Whoever the organizer was, I think it was actually E-Club, gave us some luckless luck boxes to give away. And he wanted to run a contest for him. Like, dude, I fucking hate giveaways because I hate having to like track people down, add them on Steam. I don't think we should do a giveaway. Let's just like, put the codes out there or something. He's like, no, I want to do a giveaway. Let's do a contest for it. Let's make it a thing. I'm like, okay, fine. Did a Photoshop contest. There were some funny entries. And then I get an email today. I haven't got my luckless luck box yet. Now, this Asian Cyber Games was in fucking February, dude. Like, get your shit together, gods. Then he said he was going to come on the show today. And he just doesn't show up. He doesn't say anything, man. This guy. He's fucking killing me.
You're giving insight into the quality of the corporate structure of Beyond the Summit right now.
Gods, you have no idea.
I just don't get it. I mean, we sort of gave him a hard time, and then his reaction is, well, maybe we could just make the cosplay a thing. I'm like, no, it's not just you anymore, man. We all have to.
Oh well. But I'm doing this giveaway. I'm in charge of it, so I'll do it.
Yes, because Brian is doing it, it will happen.
I've
never happen.
I've never said I'm going to do something in the Dota sphere and then not done. I think. Have I broken any promises? I don't think so.
Not that I know of. Is that a challenge, Brian?
It is a challenge.
Well, you promised to beat me in 1v1 mid, and then.
That's true. I did get a kill on you though.
Yeah.
All right. So yes, once we get the 50.
You know what's even worse is when we.
God, I'm trying to move on.
No. One more thing. When we play Red Bull drinking games at the house, he shirks his shots. He does what's called a proxy drink, which means he gets bent to do his Red Bull shots.
I think we need to stop airing this. I think you need to get some couples therapy. All right. I know a guy. Down the road.
Red Bull Pong at the house, 2v2. He lost. Okay, he lost. He was under the influence of caffeine. It's okay. So then he starts talking shit, and he said, Australia, so America, blah, blah, blah. So I say, okay, 1v1. We played 1v1. It gets down to last cup for each fucking team, and he sinks mine. I'm like, shit, I'm probably going to lose. I double sink his cup in redemption and win. And then he goes upstairs. He's like, you beat me. 10 minutes later, he's on Twitter. Australia fucking owns, destroyed America again. Typical Americans can't handle their Pong. He lost. The guy fucking lost.
Yeah. Couples therapy. I'm telling you, we're gonna. There's a
we need to make a series out of this. LD and
Gods there we go.
Couples therapy.
Just live stream your couples therapy. That's fine. That doesn't break any HIPAA laws or anything.
Yeah.
Easy. All right.
So he's on blast. I don't know. He's on vacation. What?
We're taking the piss out of him right now because he can't be here to defend himself.
It's true.
There's nothing he could say to defend himself.
That's true. All right.
He has a wig. That's all he has. That's all that I've seen of the Enchantress cosplay. The hair.
I don't know. We got a schedule, guys. Okay.
All right, we've got a schedule. Let's move forward. So the last thing on the bucket list before we get into TI is intern Reno Roland. We have to say some goodbyes, guys. Did he leave yet? Does he leave tomorrow?
He left this morning.
He left this morning? Oh, Roland.
I cooked him one last bacon and eggs breakfast, and then he pieced the Reno'd out. We got Korean barbecue last night, though, and it was really good.
Yeah, Roland was the best, man.
Roland was the best.
I'm talking like he's dead now, but we have some like intense personalities at the house. Myself certainly amongst them, and Roland's just like
it's okay.
I've actually never seen him get mad. Even when he's upset, he's not like actually mad. He just expresses his frustration in a healthy way. Yeah. Very zen guy.
Yeah, very zen. That is a good word for Roland. Very into food. I had my last meal with him. He made sure everybody got appetizers and 2 entrees. He was very serious that we all ate to capacity. I suffered through it for the good of Roland.
Yeah. He's
Yeah.
gonna miss his American food for sure.
He says
guess
he's coming back, but we'll see.
cool Roland story was so when we did the NA hub, everyone had like almost everyone. Greg did not. God, I did not. Almost everyone had a hotel room nearby.
Yes, most people.
The guard got to sleep on the floor. If you don't know who Greg is,
Oh god. The stories from the NA hub.
So some won't be said. But so Fear decided to walk back to the hotel, and we're on the west coast of the U.S. So we're casting Agent Dota. You get done, it's like I don't know 6 in the morning, 8 in the morning, 9 in the morning. You've been up all night, and everyone's beat. Everyone just like passes out immediately. And Fear's gonna walk back to the hotel. He didn't want to call an Uber or cab as just middle of the night. So Roland just decided to walk with him. Now, mind you, the hotel's not like ridiculously far away. It's like a mile and a half or something maybe to the hotel.
Yeah.
And he gets there, and then he decided to walk. He wanted to walk back, but he's too tired. But Fear's like, man, he's just like the nicest guy I've ever met. And Clinton's not exactly one to be dishing out the compliments. So, I mean, to me, that's like cool Roland story. He's just like always around, always happy to have fun, and gonna miss the guy.
Yeah.
My favorite is just the way Roland interacted with the cat. That was the best part. Roland and Sophie was just always so. She would jump on him. He never wanted. She bit him like the first time that he touched her. So he never wanted to touch her. So he just wave his hands in the air and Sophie down, and she would kind of just look at him like I don't know. Oh, Roland!
The cat always put him into panic mode.
Yeah.
He actually lost his ability to function.
So poor Roland is gone. Changes in the air, man.
Oh, God.
The house is not going to be the same. What's up, Brian?
I gotta stop clicking on stuff in Skype while we're doing other things.
Yeah, you gotta have some self-control, man. You gotta execute the control.
Yeah.
So, all right, let's talk TI4, guys. Newbie, they took first place. If that was a spoiler for you, I'm sorry. You're living under a rock. Prediction-wise, we were all pretty far off the docket. Alliance and Na'Vi were the big upsets. Alliance not making it out of the groups. Na'Vi finishing.
All pretty far off the docket. I wasn't on the preview show, but if you look at my compendium, I was 3 for 4 and 5 for 6.
Were you really? You were that close?
Yes.
I was pretty close.
That's what you get for dodging the shows, Brian.
Do you have my predictions, Andy? Did you write these down, Andrew?
I did not.
All right, then I'm just gonna go ahead and say I was 5 for 5. I got them all.
Wait.
Nice.
All right. Who did I
No,
call?
I had top 5. That was the one that I think almost everyone got wrong.
Oh yeah. I've had Alliance in my top 4 too. On the
I didn't have Vici up high for me.
Neither did I.
Those were I had EG, DK, and Newbie in my top 5.
The one thing I did predict, which I mean, I don't know if it was the best thing for the event, but I did say 5 Chinese teams top 8, and
that happened.
Yep.
I guess sadly for the hype factor for the Western fans, it happened. Right. I mean, to me, it's most deserving teams made it in, but yeah, it's.
Yeah, and also 3 Chinese teams in the top 4. DK taking 4th, EG 3rd, and of course Vici 2nd, Newbie 1st. So China. They came and they conquered for the play-in. Of course, Liquid made it, and they had a decent run. They ended 9th/10th, and that was one prediction I did get right. I called Liquid to move out of the play-in. So
MVP Phoenix, no.
Sorry, Virtus Pro fanboys, get dunked. But
what about the Ryzen fanboys, the March fanboys out there?
It would have been fun to see MVP Phoenix, but they did play well. That was a fun way to open the tournament, I think, and I'm glad Liquid had an okay run, but. I guess I'm more curious, LD, especially for you. What do you think about all these Chinese teams in the top 8? Is China is that the place to be right now? Is that the creme de la creme in Dota, or is there some other factor here?
I don't know. I think overall the Chinese teams, if you look at the number of games they played between TI2 and TI3, and how many they played between TI3 and TI4, Brian, you probably have the exact numbers, but it's got to be like 4 to 6 times, maybe, depending on the team. So they had a lot more practice coming in. Last year, you could argue the Western teams were more prepared. I think it's... I hate to say it, but I feel like, especially for teams that got eliminated from the group stage, I don't want to say you can't read anything into it, but the format was BO1s, and Dota is really not a BO1 game. If you talk to any of the teams, even those who did well at the tournament, there's Radiant and Dire, there's first pick and second pick, and that determines a lot. And the other factor, which not many of them brought up, I only talked to some briefly, but I mean, for me, it seems pretty logical that most tournaments you have BO3 matches, right? And so if your opponent does something a little unconventional, something unexpected, you have a chance to adapt, and that's what makes some captains really good. Like you look at Puppy, for example, at TI2, he saw how teams were using Naga, he had a chance to play around with it in a BO3, and he comes back and basically drafts the Naga counter. At the time, the way teams were using her was basically as a team fight initiator. So I look at this tournament and just say a lot of teams were, and it wasn't just like 2 teams got eliminated. It was 6 teams knocked out of the tournament before you move on to the next stage from BO1 matches. Now, overall, I would say like, did they get it almost completely right? Yeah, probably. Like I'd say like 85 to 90% of the results would have happened either way. I don't think you can hugely flip it and say like a team that went like 2-14 would have gone 14-2 if it was BO3s, or BO2s, but. At the same time, I feel like the format rewarded certain teams. For example, Vici Gaming, I think, is the big one that jumps out as people. Is they basically ran, I wouldn't say one strategy, but a very small set of strategies. Either 4 protect, one with Sylar, where he's on like Morphling, I'd say 80-90% of the time. The rest maybe Weaver. Or they just ran really heavy 5-man push strats, where you have like Invoker for Sylar, you go for some Necro books early, you run heroes like Razor, they would be first picking that a lot. Those types of strategies are very strong if they're unexpected or if you don't have a chance to play against it and adapt. But we saw with Newbie, once they get a handle on Vici Gaming, they manhandle them. And I mean, I think with a lot of it with Vici Gaming just came down to their strategy was not expected or teams didn't know how to deal with it. And that's where if you have BO2 or BO3 matches, teams have more of a chance to experiment. They play it once, then they get to react to it and do better. And no, I mean, it's hard to say overall, but I feel like Vici Gaming doesn't do as well if this is a BO1 format or BO2/BO3 format earlier on in the tournament. They still would have done top 8 probably, but I think more towards the bottom half of the top 8.
Speaking of the strength with the first pick and second pick. Okay, so over the whole tournament, I know there's been a lot of like numbers, just like discussions and things. Dire and Radiant ended up at an even 50-50. Which is pretty impressive, yes.
Yeah.
I'm almost certain it was an exact 50-50. Looking at the numbers now, I'm eyeballing it, but it looks like it is.
I would guess that first pick has a higher win rate.
First pick was 55%.
Yeah.
Which is pretty significant over the course of 166 matches.
And but almost all the first pick games are Radiant games, right? Like 80-90%.
It was about, let's see. Yeah, the majority of first pick games were Radiant games, yes.
So, I mean, that's basically saying Dire is stronger, right? Except they don't get the first pick advantage, so it evens out. Isn't that how you would read it?
Depends on how you read into it, yeah.
I mean, obviously that's not a hard and fast rule, but it's like a general trend.
Right. Dire is generally stronger. It's just first pick is stronger than Dire's advantage, I would say. I say the first pick advantage is stronger than the Dire advantage. But Dire is the better side, yes, I would say. Yeah, because out of all of the matches, let's see, what percentage? I have to do a lot of, like, it's something like, let's say like 70 to 80% just eyeballing it of matches were of Dire games were second pick. So, 64 plus, yeah, so pretty significant.
Yeah.
I mean, I think the one thing that was very interesting at this tournament is like just watching how greedy some teams tried to play against Newbie and Vici Gaming in particular. Like especially Vici Gaming. Like you just look at some of the drafts, and you know, I'm sure like PPD even talked about it in his blog, but it's just like the way they tried to lane it and play is way too greedy against them. They just run you over if you try to draft like 3-4 heroes, pick up multiple Midases. It ended up being the downfall for Cloud9 as well in their final game of the tournament. They played too greedy, but right now like Vici Gaming, arguably top 2 or 3 teams in the world, are punishing that level of speed, and they really took advantage. So
yeah, there were like those 2 metas that kind of came out. It was like let's run as much greed as possible and try to take advantage of that, and like basically how greedy can we be and get away with it was a meta that came out, and then another meta came out where it's like, oh, let's just fight really early and take the game and push as fast as possible. And generally, the latter strategy would beat the former.
Yeah. So what do you guys think? I mean, the finals were the big talk of the town at the end of the event. Everybody was very upset. Reddit had their flamethrowers out in full force about how shitty TI4 was. The whole thing's a disaster. Right. 20-minute GG in the last game of the grand finals. Does the crappy finals overshadow the whole event for you guys? Were the finals as crappy as some of the threads would have you believe?
It's hard to not have it overshadow it somewhat, but I mean this happens in competitive sports, right? For American football fans, last year's Super Bowl was a joke. It was like what 49-7 or something. The Seahawks won over the Broncos. It was ridiculous.
Oh, that was the worst Super Bowl I've seen in I don't know, maybe my entire life.
sometimes it just happens. Sometimes you put all this hype into this one event and it just doesn't deliver because sports are an enigma and like competition just can go either way sometimes. I think it does overshadow a bit, which is unfortunate because of how good I think some of the playoff matches and some of the especially the group stage matches. Like we had some amazing group stage matches. And so I feel like it overshadows it a bit, which is unfortunate. But I think if fans like on down the road, they'll look back at it a little more fondly and realize it was more than just the final.
I mean, there were some good, like, obviously, I think the general trend is people, like, group stage games are very forgettable, even if they're super epic, and will mostly pay attention to the main event. And one thing to keep in mind was the main event this year was quite a bit shorter. It was 4 days, there was a lot less games per day. Last year was 5 games and some long days. And you also got to see every team at the event. Be it one elimination game, sure, you know, it kind of sucks for a team to be eliminated on the main stage with just a BO1, but at the same time, it made for some high-stakes play. Like, you go back to TI2 when eHome was playing the Tiny Wisp strat. They had that epic game. I just remember, you know, Lanham just clubbing things. And this was like before Tiny Wisp was really that popular. It was 2012. It was a long time ago. So, like, having more games at the main event and also having more elimination games. There weren't that many elimination games. You only start with 8 teams, so it sets the stage for more exciting stakes. Whereas, like the bubble race, it's really hard to get excited about players in a hotel conference room. You don't have a live audience. The panel, there wasn't that much thought I put into it, I felt like, compared to the main event. And, you know, it was kind of slapped together, honestly. Like, even like the set for much smaller events with lower budgets look a lot better, feel a lot more exciting. And, I mean, there were actually good games at the main event. I think it's easy to forget that, but there was the LGD versus DK game number 2, where DK 2-racks them. They had like a 30, was it 30?
Oh, yeah.
And they threw the game. Like, they actually
threw. I said he never threw a game that hard. Like, there'd never been a game where they're that far in the lead that he's lost.
Yeah, if he had ratted, I mean, there are a lot of mistakes you could point to, but basically if he just ratted harder and just avoided fights more, they would have won. Like, there's no way you lose that game if you played it correctly, and he knows that. But
yeah,
I mean, that was still a great game. Sure, it was a throw, but it was very entertaining, right? Yes. There was also the
comebacks are fun.
The Cloud9 Meepo Bounty Hunter comeback game. That was fantastic.
Yeah, I saw that one.
I think it's just very easy to forget about the good games because we got a really disappointing finals. And what makes it a lot worse is TI3's finals. Like, frankly,
that's the problem.
It's one of the worst things that could have happened to future TIs if you really think about it, that TI3 was so epic, because great finals just don't come around very often. Like, even if they're close until the end of the game in professional sports, they're not often exciting all the way through. And that series, there was the one complete shit game, which was game 1, where Puppy tried a really unorthodox, aggressive trialing farm revenge strat. It didn't work, and the game was just over. But the other games were pretty decent. And then game 5 was just, you know, with all the pressure, mistakes happen, and boy, did mistakes happen or what. But yeah, I think part of it's bad luck. Part of it is the format. Just having less games means less opportunities for good games. I think a lot of why the finals wasn't that exciting was also just due to the production. Like, Western fans have no idea who Newbie is, and Valve did not do a good job at all of sharing their story. Like, even things
they had those 4 videos.
Yeah, you could tell they were prepared for like Alliance to go far.
Alliance, DK, Alliance, Navi, and EG all got videos, and nobody else got videos. IG got a video.
They were hedging their bets a bit.
You didn't hear the story of Newbie. Shao 8, there's so much material there. I mean, the guy was a legendary player at TI2. He carried LGD to an undefeated record in the group stage. Then they fell short. His dreams were crushed. They finished top 3 in the end. It's IG who end up taking home the event. You go to TI3. They have that game versus Liquid where, you know, Bulba just goes off on clockwork. Sylar choked in the match, basically, and they end up losing. They restructure their roster. He flitzed around from team to team. He was on the dating show. That's a really interesting storyline that would humanize him a lot as a player. But I know there's a lot more. I mean, I don't speak Chinese. I don't get to hear, you know, everything going on in the scene. But just because they don't speak your language doesn't mean that you can't find someone who does and do more work going into it. And I mean, it's easier said than done. But there's stuff already out there that they could have used, that we've used in the past for events, that just helps to add like a level of personality to these players. Where like Hao is actually a really social guy, and I know people, you know, Newbie races, blah blah blah, but you know, I from what I've heard, a lot of that's overblown.
Really overblown.
The scrims, and yes, you know, most of these players have a certain level of nationalism towards China, but a lot of people around the world do. It's not just limited to China. And for the most part, they didn't scrim DK because DK just wants to do crazy shit in their scrims. This actually, I remember it happened going into TI3 for Liquid and Dignitas, where AUI 2000 and Bulba would fight. They would argue, and it was even in front of me at times. Like, no, we don't want to scrim you because we want to have a chance to experiment, and you need to play normal stuff so we can see how it works. Like, we need a control. Yeah, it's like if you're doing a scientific experiment, you need like a control so you can actually evaluate the strat. But both teams want to experiment, and the thing with DK is they always want to experiment, and they never do like a normal strat. So the practice isn't that valuable. But I guess the point is, I'm sure there's a lot of great stories that could have been told, and I was really disappointed this year with the feeling that there was no real stories. Like they did the same thing they did at TI2, where they had like the pre-recorded stuff, and that's really good. And it was super groundbreaking at TI2, at least for the Dota scene, because that stuff hadn't happened before. But they didn't go any farther than that. And to me, it seems with the amount of money and support the community's brought in, that there's a lot more that could have been done.
I agree.
Yeah, it seems like they were just kind of hedging their bets on which teams they thought would go far based on previous results and build up that storyline that way. And if two of those teams had made it into the finals, I think it would have been a lot more hype. I also think the finals would have been more hyped if it was just different continents. It doesn't have to be North America versus China or China versus Europe. I just think any kind of cross-sea matchup just adds an extra level.
It reminds people of the other esports too much that are generally dominated by one continent, right? Or one country, right? So I think that's an issue. Another issue. Well, by the way, thank God ROTK kind of came out, like made his like appearance to the Western like audience at the All-Star match and stuff. Otherwise, there would have been there would have been no recorded personality for that finals. But everyone kind of got to love ROTK over the course of the main event, which was great because we've got to experience ROTK. We know about the LAN yell, but that didn't really have a chance to come out until they went to the All-Star match, went to the grand finals, and if it wasn't for that, we wouldn't have even seen it.
Like if you I don't know how many people actually watched the pre-show for the grand finals, but it was like they had like a really long segment on Alliance, a really long segment on EG, and I'm just sitting there thinking, wait, is it Alliance versus EG today, or is it Newbie versus VG Gaming? Because it really didn't feel like it was going to be Newbie versus VG Gaming. About 30 minutes before the match, they're like, all right, and now it's time to look at the match. And I mean, it's something you want to do to some extent in a tournament. Like, you want to not just say, okay, here's the match and jump into it. You want to tell the story of how the teams got there, but tell the story of how the teams who are there got there. Don't tell the story of how all the other teams who you already did a lot to promote and kind of develop and who are already established got eliminated. Like, we already told their stories the past 3 days. To focus on these teams. If you look at like how the NFL does Super Bowl Sunday, like the entire day is just building up and building up and building up about those two teams. Like, sure, you might involve other teams, but it's all in context of like, who Newbie took down on the way, or like the struggles they had earlier in the season. Like, how did the Baltimore Ravens get there in the Super Bowl a few years back? Like, it just, if the focus, like Valve, like the way you do the production affects how people are going to perceive the teams. Like, obviously, that I'm not saying Valve had 100% control, or that whoever's producing the show had 100% control, but you have a lot of sway and influence, and I mean that's true for anyone involved in broadcast. And I felt like they kind of dropped the ball, and a lot of the reason why people were unhappy with the teams was, because their stories weren't really told.
Right.
Yeah.
But I'm rambling at this point.
I agree, though. I did really like the way they did the All-Star tournament. I thought that was
All-Star match was really well done.
What was pretty cool. I think it's unfortunate that Artur is the one that got techies, since he obviously does not really know what's going on with techies.
Come on, it was good that he got techies.
I thought it was funny, but it would have been fun to see a game where techies wrecked instead of going 1-24 or whatever he did.
But it wasn't going to wreck anyway, because no one's played him in forever, and that tournament was that match was 100% fan service.
Oh yeah.
So of course you want to put RTZ on it. I feel.
I mean, there were a lot of big players in that. I don't know, man. What do you mean? Of course, RTZ.
His techies was actually ass.
Yeah, no, it was actually really bad. Well, of course he went Midas, but so that was bad. But his techies was awful. But
the thing is, we'll flame RTZ now, and when techies comes out, he'll play it for like 2 weeks, and it'll be godlike. So
Yeah.
But he clearly either he was just trolling, or he barely
he was
ever.
100% troll, man. I don't think he wanted to perform well, honestly.
I was really curious at how much of. Oh yeah, how much of that ceremony was like scripted or acted out? Because it was surprisingly good. I think Havos and ROTK were like the perfect personalities for that, and I thought the real cheese was a really good touch. All of it was just, it was a lot better than just 10 really cool players. They made a whole spectacle out of it, and I enjoyed it quite a bit.
The techies unveiling was really well done too.
The unveiling was really well done. I definitely agree with that. The actual match didn't live up to it, but I mean, I can't really pin that on Valve. I mean, if it's a one-sided game, the only thing you can maybe say is why is there an Abaddon and a Lone Druid at an All-Star match? These are not exciting heroes. Abaddon's the definition of not an exciting hero.
Yeah. They had to pick from the pool of the top 20 most voted heroes.
Oh, really?
So it was a custom mode where when you voted in the compendium, it was the top 20 heroes, and you got to choose between those. And so Abaddon and Lone Druid were apparently in the pool.
That was Bernie was pretty anti-fun in that, I gotta say.
Yeah, Ferrari was the worst.
But
Legion
Bernie
Commander.
is like he's a beast in these like fun gimmicky matches.
Yeah.
He was like for sure the MVP of the.
Yeah,
Punch
he carried Pudge Wars, right?
He did really well at this, and I'm
Yeah.
trying to think. I think there was one other thing at some Chinese tournament he did pretty well in as well. But yeah, either way, I thought the All Stars match was pretty good. It's a little weird though. Like these guys just got eliminated from TI. I think DK had just been knocked out, and then they have to come on and play a show match right after. And just thinking like this is not what they want to be doing right now. But I don't know when there's a better time to schedule it.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, kind of agreed. It's unfortunate, but I think in most circumstances players would not do that. But Valve has so much pull, so much power at TI that we're lucky enough to have a fun lineup like that. So, all right, we need to get our guests on here. Hopefully, everyone's ready to rock. PD is here and ready-ish. So, we'll have him on in just a minute to talk about TI from the player perspective. The last thing I want to ask you guys about before we break up our trio here. Afterparty and Darude. How did you guys enjoy yourselves? Did you get down on the sandstorm? Were you dancing, Brian? I'm going to admit
I
was
left
dancing.
like halfway through the sandstorm set.
Yes.
Well, I left before sandstorm happened. I left halfway through the Darude set. Excuse me. I forget sometimes he's more than the song, but apparently the set was good.
It was pretty good, actually.
Yeah.
I was happily surprised.
I actually feel like they were trying to end the party early. Like you show up to the after party, and they were pouring these drinks where it's like it was like 3 or 4 shots a drink. Like
They were really heavy drinks. Holy shit!
it's like they wanted everyone to just get
Oh
pissed
my
drunk.
God.
And like, well, you know what? We're shutting it down 3 hours early, boys. You got to get out of here.
I was down for it, but like the whiskey they had was early times, and like I can handle some cheap bourbon, but early times is I usually don't go much below Evan Williams. And so I couldn't really.
Weirdest thing to complain about, right? It sounds like a total first world problem. Like the drinks are too strong, but the thing is, people are just going to drink whatever they're given, right? So then they get sloppy, and they were.
Yeah, it was all fun and game. I was really loving the strong drinks until somebody threw up all over the bottom, and half the venue smelled like somebody's like stomach lining. Oh, it was terrible. Oh, come on, guys. If you're gonna get trashed, don't eat popcorn. I think that is a rule that goes without saying.
I didn't eat very much of that food that was there.
Got it into the ventilation system was the real problem. It wasn't just like in the doorway. Like anywhere you went. Yeah,
dude, it was bad.
I'm glad I left before that happened.
Like they were like wafting the smell of vomit through the entire venue at the end just to get people out. But I mean, before that happened, it was pretty good. I got some complaints from people that it was too bright and didn't facilitate like casual, relaxed conversation. People are all stressed out. I don't know.
I liked the venue. I thought it had a good break of like music on one side, casual conversation on the other. But towards the end, it did get a little loud.
Yeah. They just kept turning up the music. Like Katie Kate was like you couldn't hear Katie Kate anywhere but like the actual stage area. I think that might have been on purpose. But then the next artist came on and you could hear it throughout the venue. So
yeah.
All right. We want to get PPD on here, or do we have more venting to do about the after party?
No, let's do it.
It can be a positive thing. It's just like letting things out. Semantics, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's bring
PPD. All right. Let's take a break here, guys. We'll be back in a couple of minutes, and we'll have PPD joining us from Team EG.